We are recording now. Okay. So for the sake of the recording, welcome everybody to the February 2022 meeting of the Naples chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and turn off your cameras and microphones unless you are our guest speaker for tonight. And this is because we are recording the meeting. We'll make it available on YouTube, and it'll just help us preserve the quality of the video recording. If you have questions at any time, feel free to type them into the chat. We will address questions at the end of the feature presentation. And at that point, if you don't have access to the chat, you'll be invited to unmute yourself to ask a question if that is your preference. And remember, if you do watch these videos on our YouTube channel, we do have our whole collection of recorded meetings since May of 2020 on our YouTube channel at this point. And when you watch them there, you have the option to turn on the subtitles in your choice of language. So if your first language is something other than English, or you know somebody who's interested in native plants, but maybe English isn't their first language, that's a good opportunity to watch our meetings in the language of your choice. Oh, my mouse again. Okay. So the main part of the announcements for this evening is I am excited to share some highlights from our chapter's 2021 annual report. Of course, we are the Naples chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. We do go by Naples Native Plants for short. You can see that in our logo. And like the other chapters in the Florida Native Plant Society, we have a mission to preserve, conserve, and restore Florida's native plants. And all of the different things that we do in a pursuit of achieving that mission, we couldn't do it without our members of the Florida Native Plant Society and the many members who volunteer to make all of our different activities, events, and plant sales possible. And I was just thrilled to see that over the course of last year, our chapter membership increased by 57%. And that is quite remarkable. You can see at the beginning of the year, we started with 92 members, and we have since grown to 145 members and growing still. We are also very appreciative of our 4 business members who've been supporting our chapter. That includes BB Florida Friendly, Cypress Cove Landkeepers, Land Dirt Landscaping Design, and Naples Botanical Garden. I keep using the mouse that's not working. I'm moving it out of the way. All right. The next category of something that we are very proud of is the number of native plants that we got into the ground last year. A big increase from 2020. In 2021, we were able to provide over 1,800 native plants to residential customers. And a big reason for this jump compared to the previous year is that the Kokolova chapter, led by Marlene Rodak, who I believe is with us this evening, they were kind enough to give the Naples chapter 3 months of experience managing Cutting Horse Eco Center. So the plants that were sold to customers from that site, plus a few pop-up native plant sales that we did in Collier County, led to this increase in our distribution of native plants to customers. We also facilitated 8 native landscaping consultations last year. 4 of those were for member homes, 2 were for HOAs, and 2 were for local preserves. Additionally, 7 of our members volunteered to get native plants in the ground for habitat restoration. And that was at Everglades National Park and Rattlesnake Hammock Preserve, one of the newer conservation collier preserves. So lots of great things happening on this slide. The Naples chapter was also happy to participate in a lot of different community events last year. Of course, mostly these were outdoor events. And of the 5 different events, we were able to have over 500 educational interactions with different visitors at these events. And the events included the Earth Day celebration by Collier County Parks and Recreation, National Public Lands Day, and National Estuaries Day. Those actually happen on the same day, but our chapter was able to participate in both at 2 different sites. And we were thrilled to participate in the Naples Yard and Garden Show this past fall. Of course, that's put on by the Collier County Extension Office and the Master Gardeners. And we were also very pleased to be a part of the grand opening of the Gore Nature Education Center with Cypress Cove Land Keepers. So all of these events were a wonderful way for us to meet even more people who care about nature and native plants and to get us all connected. 2021 was also the year that we launched our citizen science project with the help of iNaturalist. And iNaturalist, if you're not familiar with it, is a website and app where you can take pictures of anything in nature, and the iNaturalist helps you get that creature identified. And the reason why our chapter wanted to start a project in iNaturalist was to photographically record when native plant species bloom, specifically in Southwest Florida, because as probably all of you know, the timing when native plants bloom across the state of Florida is not always the same between North Florida and Central Florida and South Florida. We talked about some differences we observed in the freeze that happened a couple of weekends ago. So we're interested in the timing of when the native plants are blooming in our area in Southwest Florida. And you can see in the middle of the screen, the name of our project is Naples Native Plants Bloom Phenology. And that word phenology just means the timing of when the plants bloom. You can see that we keep track of which native plant was most observed per month of the project. So we have Florida paintbrush in October, pine lily in November, and yellow milkwort in December. And at the end of the year, over 475 native plant species had been identified by iNaturalist users through this project. And for just a moment, I'm going to pop out of the annual report to give you last month's iNaturalist update. You can see we've already jumped from 475 species observed up to 574, so almost 100 species of an increase in just 1 month. And it seems like a lot of that increase came from one additional iNaturalist user joining our project. And that doesn't mean that they photographed 100 different species all since they joined the project. If you've been using iNaturalist for a long time and you join our project, it will import your previous observations that fit the parameters of what our project is looking for. So if you use iNaturalist and you haven't joined our project yet, I definitely encourage you to do so. We want to keep collecting observations through the year, at least through October of this year. So yeah, please join us if you haven't already. You can see the photos here, most frequently observed in January. We mentioned in our trivia game, Leavenworth's tick seed was one of the most observed, tied with Pineland heliotrope. Okay, now delving back into the annual report again. The Naples chapter has always had a strength in providing educational presentations to our community, and last year was no different. We provided 21 educational presentations received by over 800 people watching in real time. These were all virtual presentations, but that 800 number is by people who were watching the meeting live. And you can see the variety of audiences that received our presentations. So along with our increase in online activity for the Naples chapter, namely our virtual chapter meetings over the last year and a half or so, we have seen an increase in the virtual following for our chapter. And you can see on the left all the different ways that people can follow what the Naples chapter is doing on the internet or by subscribing to our newsletter, which is called Nymphaea. So altogether, we've got over 1,500 followers across all the channels. Most of those are Facebook followers, but we also have over 370 newsletter subscribers and over 300 views of recorded programs on our YouTube channel. So additional ways that we can share native plant education with others. So coming towards the end of our annual report, we had a lot of partners who worked with us last year to coordinate with us on projects, events, and distribution of educational materials. So thank you to all of these partners for working with us on a lot of different successful events and projects. And with all of the positive activity that we've had over the last year, and especially with the 3 final months of last year managing the plant sales at Cutting Horse Eco Center and all of the wonderful plant sale customers who came out to buy those plants, the Naples chapter is in a positive financial position at the end of the year, and that puts us in a great spot to be able to continue with projects and plant sales moving into the next year. So be sure to watch our newsletter and come to our meetings to find out when our next plant sales and other events are going to happen. If you have any questions about what you've seen in the annual report, you can contact us at naplesnativeplants@fnps.org, and you'll see that email address a couple of other times in this presentation. I'm going to check the chat really quick. Okay, thank you, Connie, for providing the links to relevant information that was shared in the annual report. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for your attention. And yeah, before moving on any further, these are the individuals who made all of those great things happen last year. So I'd like to thank last year's board and committee chairs and volunteers for all of the excellent work that you did. So you can see the names and photos of those individuals here. And moving forward to this year, you see some familiar faces from the last screen, but some new faces as well. So I'd like to thank everyone who has joined the board and committees for the Naples chapter for this year. So that's my picture for interim president and communications chair. Our vice president is Maureen McFarland, secretary Leslie Lander, treasurer Beth Courtwright. Conservation co-chairs are Liberty Gibson and David Cordy. Membership chairs Connie Nagel. Outreach and programs co-chair Karen Allman. And outreach co-chair BB Cantor. And if you participated in the election for our 2022 board and committee chairs, you may recall there was a second programs co-chair that was elected in. Unfortunately, she did have to step down recently, but we are lucky that it was a co-chair position, and we do have Karen Allman serving as our programs chair moving forward. One of the final announcements is to remind you that we have the Florida Native license plate that is up for taking reservations for people who would be interested in having this plate on a vehicle. And the Florida Native Plant Society will receive funding to support the mission to conserve Florida's native plants through the reservation or purchase of this specialty license plate. And we do need to reach at least 3,000 reservations for the plate before it will be manufactured. And we're still working on reaching that goal. So if you would like to reserve the Florida Native license plate, there should be a link heading into the chat if it's not already there. We would appreciate your support. Now, just a few upcoming events that we're looking forward to. This coming Sunday is the Cocoloba chapter's annual meeting. That is Sunday, February 13th at 2 o'clock, taking place at Lovers Key State Park. And this is in Lee County, of course. And the feature presentation there will be on native and naturalized orchids, presented by Dennis Giardina. And I believe we've got Marlene Rodak in the meeting. So Marlene, if you're nearby and would like to say anything about the annual meeting.
Come on down.
All right. Thank you, Marlene. You still have tickets, I take it?
Sorry, I had a full mouth. Yes, we do. You don't need to make a reservation to come in. That was just to try to get a feel for how many people we were going to have there, but everybody's welcome, and come check out the new Discovery Center at Lovers Key State Park.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marlene. Okay, also coming up this month, and we've heard this event mentioned a couple of times during the Native Plant Trivia game by Maureen McFarland. So coming up next Wednesday evening is Marco Nature Night. And this is an event where you can visit different environmental groups or gardening groups and gather information. There will be presentations and plant giveaways. And this is taking place in the Marco Island Community Room. And I understand, Maureen, this is part of the police station on Marco Island?
That's right. It's all in one building. City Hall, police station, community room. It's all the same.
Okay. And Maureen is going to be one of our Naples chapter members who will be representing our chapter at Marco Nature Night, along with Karen Allman and perhaps a couple of others. So if you live on Marco Island or you'll be visiting Marco Island next Wednesday, plan to stop in at Marco Nature Night. Now looking ahead to next month, March, big news, I suppose. Our chapter is hoping to have a hybrid meeting for our March meeting. And by hybrid meeting, I mean that you could choose to go in person to Naples Botanical Garden in the Buehler Auditorium, where our chapter historically had our meetings, or you could choose to watch the meeting on Zoom. Now we do have some technological logistics to work out for figuring out how to do our first hybrid meeting, but I'll be sure to put details in our next newsletter and on our website as things start to come together. We're really excited to have Jono Miller as our guest speaker for March. He's the author of the Palmetto book. And so in accordance with that, his topic will be histories and mysteries of the cabbage palm. Anytime you want to look at other Naples chapter events that are coming up, you can see our website calendar on fnpsnaples.org. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your attention during the announcements. I hope we'll see you at some of these upcoming events. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our programs chair, Karen Allman, to introduce our guest speaker.
All right. Elizabeth has been keeping nature journals since 2007, sharing what she's learned through classes and workshops. She recently served as a teaching artist for the Naples Botanical Garden with an introductory course on nature journaling from fall 2018 through summer 2021, both in person and online classes. She previously taught there for 4 years with classes in drawing, watercolor, pencil, and watercolor. She is a long-term member of the Naples chapter, which we greatly appreciate, and has participated over the years in various projects and exhibitions that celebrate nature and art with a special interest in plants. Her other creative endeavors include watercolor painting, assemblage, and keeping a blog. She enjoys teaching and creating programs and considers herself a lifelong learner. And we do have hopefully we can put it in the chat, but we have her blog and website that we can share with everyone. Chat.
Thank you so much, Karen. So Elizabeth, whenever you're ready, you can share your slides with us.
Thank you, Karen and Andy. So I will share my screen and I will be walking you through a series of nature journal pages where everyone can see me. You should be able to see my entry slide. Is that correct?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. Let me just move this bar. I have to move a couple things here. There we go. Zoom always likes to put these little bars. You can't see them, but I have to move them around a little. Okay, so what are we going to do today? Well, I hope to inspire you to maybe on your own, in big ways or little ways, to either think about a nature journal for yourself as a learning tool, or to continue one that you may have already started in different formats. So think of this as an introduction. Some of you who might already be drawing or journaling, you might already have something. Oops, there we go. You might already be having something started, which is fine. I have to tell you, I started mine in fits and starts. So it didn't all just come together very neatly, as some of my pages do seem to look. Some of them look a little more polished than others. Others are a little more crowded but here's the thing, it's full of the excitement of discovery. So the time we're going to have together, I want to show you some examples and some ways that you might use this as a learning tool. Now, a nature journal is going to be images and words. I use drawings, and you don't have to be an artist to actually create an effective journal. You'll see some of my pages have very, very simple drawings. Some have a little more elaborate things because that's what I was interested in. You can see here on this blue portrait page, this is very simple. We're going to talk briefly about materials, and we'll look at a couple of resources that might be helpful to you, and then we'll have a Q&A time. So really, materials, you don't need a lot, so don't let that overwhelm you. We'll take a look at some examples. Think about any questions you might have too. So if this is a totally new subject to you, you might wonder, well, what is it in the first place? Am I going to be, and I wish I could show you a variety of other people's, because mine are what they are. They follow my interests. Some have themes, some do not. Some are about documentation, and some are just about experiences. All of these things are important. So here's something I want you to think about. Every page you create in pictures and words tells a story. And each one is a different story. Beautyberry. This is a slightly different story than the beach sunflower. You can tell the mood is different. And it was a sunny day. This one may be a little more shady in this spot. You can get a lot of different information from these very simple drawings and words. But look at the bottom of this beautyberry, if you can see this well on your screen. These are very simple drawings. But if you are new to this plant, these are little things that would help you a lot. How does it grow? What is the leaf arrangement? What kind of leaf margins does this have? So I can idea down the road. Why would I keep a nature journal to start with? That's a good question. And we'll look at some reasons you might want to. One of the reasons I started was to learn about different species. There are so many different native plants in Southwest Florida that, it was a helpful way for me to learn. It had me, when you draw something, you have to really stop. You have to slow down. You have to look very closely. You have to spend some time with this plant and get to know it. When you draw and write about something, it is extremely experiential because drawing is really a form of language. And when you combine drawing with writing words or notes of any type, this is a very, very powerful tool for learning. Two different journal entries of the same species. Yet you can see each one tells a little bit different story, doesn't it? Nature journaling helps me understand a little bit about botany and understand the structures. So Andy mentioned that passion flower earlier, the corky-stemmed passion vine, and how complicated that was. Well, this helps. How do these parts go together? And you start asking questions. What is this part? What is that part? What does this do? So, I always thought these were petals. I learned that they were sepals. And these are actually the petals here. And then these other three are actually styles. They're modified plant structures that we normally see in the center of a bloom. Here's a side view of this iris that helps put this and this together. Now, granted, I don't often do things this complicated, but this thing had me intrigued. And it helped me learn, what is this? And how do they fit together? And then I asked myself, well, what purposes do these serve? Just think, here's the perfect little winding strip. And look at all the little lines saying, come here, pollinate me here. So, you show things the best way you can. You can start in the field and finish up later. I did my sketches and some color notes in the field and went and got comfortable and finished my color. That's perfectly fine. I think Lisa mentioned that too. The studio is a lot more comfortable than the field, but the field is where all the good stuff is because that's where we learn a lot. So I learn about the bigger picture from my nature journals. So this is Naples Preserve and just off the boardwalk where it sort of shifts from the pine flatwoods to really scrubby places. And I just love this little coastal plain honeycomb head. Isn't that such a cool name for a wildflower? But you can look how simple, very simple, just to capture the essence of what you're seeing. You don't have to get everything very botanically and technically correct. This is your story, and this is to help you. And every day that you draw something, it's going to help us get better and better. And when I look at a habitat and sit with it for a while, it becomes a friend. I get to learn and ask questions. What are these relationships between this and this and this? And what is this? And why is this here? And where is that gopher tortoise anyway? He was under the boardwalk, by the way. So it really helps us learn. And I ask questions. I ask questions about the gopher tortoise burrow, and I learned so much about them being a keystone species, how many other species use their burrows, and just what it was like. The air was so soft. It was a really nice day. All of that day comes back to me. And that's a really nice, important memory to me. When I keep a nature journal page, another part of the bigger picture I get when I do small collections of things. So this is kind of an important part of my personality, I suppose, that I've always collected little bits of things. So here we go. The one on the left are things from my yard. And just for fun, you know, there's a little bit of things. There's so I have a live oak tree. There's a necklace pod. Fossil shells keep coming up, probably from the field it. As you know, I have a slash pine in there. Passion vine, which shows up a lot of places. Mourning dove, which is a typical backyard bird. Just in one little spot. Look at all that nature. And you know what's nice about this is it doesn't move, so you can sit and arrange it and do a little study at your leisure. And then of course, you know, if you travel, it's kind of nice to have something to remember, you know, where you went and what was growing there. So these are things, these are things from, it's quite a large river bottom prairie along the upper Iowa River. And it was fall, so the trees were all turning. This wood chip, which my father told me, the teeth marks from the beavers who knocked down this tree down to the bottom, the beaver tree. And there's the river. So this even little vignettes of that landscape bring it all back and tell you so much. You see the different relationships that each of these has to each other? It's such a wonderful learning tool in that way. But that's kind of my thing, is the small things. I sometimes I use my journal to express the feelings I have. Nature is such a great healer, but it also does sometimes bring a lot of strong emotions up. So the connections we make to place are sometimes very important to us. I wanted to share that with others, especially in my experience of the day. It was an overcast day, one of those kind of gray, I want to say damp days, but not overly damp. It was a soft air damp, let's put it that way. So, you know, we have this muted colors of these red mangrove roots. Some of them were grayed over with, you know, water deposits, maybe minerals, maybe some lichens. It looked like it had been there a while. And the water had gone down. The water levels had been low for the last couple months. And I just wanted to kind of capture that feeling. So sometimes I'll use quotes, poems, pieces of poems. This is a haiku I wrote while I was there. And of course I wrote it at home. I had a better surface to write on, but I jotted it down on another little page and pencil just to keep it in my memory. That sense of place can be really, really important to us. We all have special locations in our life, whether we travel, whether we it's our home, whether it's where we grew up, or a special place we visit. So here on the far left, you're going to see this is kind of a map I did as part of an exercise in mapping, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, here's the big picture is Florida, and then you get smaller and smaller, and there's home. And some of the plants and animals that I see in my yard, and then some of the things that are around, which led me to speculate, by the way, of what came before my house was here. What kind of habitat was there? I think it must have been a pine flatwoods based on similar empty lots. There's a creek nearby, so it might have had some other species sort of transitioning. You know, but it does make you wonder. Found out that years, maybe in the 30s and 40s, there was a cow pasture not too far away. Actually, a little cow, it was a dairy farm, probably about half a mile away, which was really fascinating, next to a pine flatwoods. Places that are special to your memories, a trip to Iowa and just things along the road, Montana, and then some parts of Yellowstone here. Very special places. These are things you want to hold and remember, and take time to stop and put your brush or pencil to paper. This is what helps you remember, helps you connect and build that sense of connection. A nature journal can help you explore things. Now, this is not the explore as in, I'm going to look and see what I can find, because, you know, I'm an artist. So sometimes my exploration is color and texture and shape. So this is what I captured my eye, the sea grape leaves. So this was in February, after a cold snap. Oh, look at those wonderful colors. And of course, every time I draw sea grape leaves or even the branches, I'm always captivated by these thick muscular veins, you know, and the leathery leaves. It's just that they're just, I don't know, there's something about this and the history of sea grape leaves and how they used to be used by the people that came before. It just fascinates me. So, you know, you can bring something inside and just see what happens. Explore those colors. See how you can layer that up. And that starts speculating. Is there something, what caused this? What caused that? Why does this grow like this? Excuse me. How? Why? All good questions. They help us learn. Sometimes it's good to document. So, citizen scientists, yes, we can add a lot through our drawings and our notes. Excuse me, let's make your butt out. Sometimes those might take the form of species counts. They might just be the blooming times, such as the recent project that you all have just had. You might be doing migration patterns. You might be documenting so many things. What did you see that day? How many pollinators? Did you want to count birds? This particular one was just another mapping and diagramming exploration. And it's basically a chart of some different plants and animals, mostly plants. And I was interested in the plantings I had done for wildlife food, butterflies, and what was edible for humans. So you can see I have most of them are for wildlife. And then of course, you know, heights, proportion, numbers, relative. It was just kind of fun. That was done for fun, but then you know what? I learned a lot doing this too, because I had to actually go out and count things and I had to figure out proportions. So, and it was challenging. And I looked at things out there in a whole new light, which I thought was pretty awesome. Just a completely different way to see things. And of course, we can return to our childhood and just have fun. This is an exercise that really is quite educational. So these are just rubbings done on tracing paper. If you can use anything really, I use watercolor pencil. You can use crayon or regular pencil, pastels, just about anything. And all you're doing is you're taking rubbings of bark or leaves. And of course, some leaves work better than others, some bark works better than others. But once again, I learned some things. Our touch is one thing, the sense of touch, but to see that translated into a visual representation is very helpful and teaches me a lot more about these two different species. I think this was a black ironwood. And the textures were just a little different than I thought. So once again, even play has a place. And it helps me seeing this shape of the passion vine was very helpful because for sketching this again, I have a really good idea of how strong to make that center vein and how these lengths of these side little mittens are to the proportional to the long center. I think you can see that yourself. It's a helpful way to visualize this without all of the color that distracts us and the three-dimensionality. And of course, then I had to go and document a couple of variations in these because, you know, one thing always leads to another in nature journaling, which is part of the joy. I keep a nature journal sometimes to remember things. And this is a scene from my father's backyard, father and mother's backyard. And he had tons of Baltimore Orioles coming through, along with quite a number of other bird species. So I just felt a strong need to record that in some way when I had the time. And of course, my mother has a very wild looking garden, or actually, if this is the backyard, I think they have a teeny tiny bit of grass in the front. Everything else is planted. And they get bunnies and deer and lots of birds and hummingbirds. So I was really glad I did this because when my mom passed away the next year, of course, you know, this garden changed dramatically. So this was a wonderful memory, but it was also wonderful to do. The challenge of, you know, trying to get the birds' shapes while they kept moving around and hopping and changing. But it was a wonderful thing, and I'm very, very glad. This makes me smile every time I see it. And it was in August, but it was a really nice, the weather was very, very nice. And I used my nature journal to document changes because I learned a lot about that too. I loved sprouting this red mangrove propagule. And of course, what we're going to turn into, right? I mean, isn't that amazing that this is actually a living plant? You know, we think of this sometimes as a seed or something similar, but it's amazing. I mean, it's just ready to go on a trip and find a place to stay. Right? Pretty cool. And Miss Flower, I think I got seeds of these one time from one of our sales long time ago. And of course, they spread in different places, and I get to help spread them here and there. I love how the seeds kind of poof out everywhere, and just how they start and where they end up. I'm hoping that's the native one. I like to show changes. Here's the big fire in 2009 along I-75. Seemed to last for acres and acres. South side of I-75, Alligator Alley. And nothing but brown and black. It seemed like forever. But I thought I had to, you know, put it down on paper. It's very, you see how simple this is? It was kind of loose and messy because I was a passenger in a car. And this is more of a composite than an actual sit down and do it. I was after the experience, not a particular scene. But of course, sometimes you do want a particular scene, such as that another cold snap and look at that maple. It's just an amazing thing. we also want to sometimes just play and experiment. Try something totally new. I see a lot of nature journalers are doing, all different types of lettering. Some of them are doing, calligraphy. Some of them are just doing different types of fonts. And I just wanted to see is this for me? Probably not so much, but it was kind of fun to do. And it was fun to do this magnolia and try to look simple, keep it simple. It doesn't have to be a big deal. But it also, this is when a lot of these magnolias were blooming in the roadways, which just amazed me sometimes to see them. So this would have been probably from landscaping rather than something growing wild. So just playing, having a playful heart, having fun, but yet still trying to capture sort of an essence and elegance of your subject. Okay, so there's a few examples of my nature journal pages from the past, and also some reasons why you may want to ever start a nature journal, continue one, or pick one up that you started years ago, which I hope you will. If you don't want to learn to draw or do much with drawing, there are lots and lots of tutorials. There are classes. You can do it with photographs and rubbings and little notes and sketches, anything to help you learn. That's the bottom line. Is this is about learning. Now, what materials will you need to accomplish this? So let's look at the art supplies, because that's really my field. I can't advise you on a camera or what binoculars or field guides to carry. Those you will get from other experts. But here's what you need to know. They need to be portable. If you are sketching in the field, they have to be something that you can pack in and pack out. That means you need paper towels, lunches, water bottles, be prepared to bring it back with you. There are no guarantees of restaurants or bistros or trash cans or restrooms when you go out in the field. Sometimes there are, which is nice. And there may not be seating available. So, do you need to bring a chair, a stool? Remember, you have to carry this too. So here's this is one of my kits when we went out to the Fakahatchee. So I use a lot of watercolor pencils in the field because I can take a small sketchbook. This is a 6x9, a water brush, watercolor pencils, pen. I can throw everything in a bag and a few other things, and grab a stool if I want, a magnifier if I want, and keep it nice and light, because invariably I'm going to have a snack and a couple water bottles with me. So what you need to think about is, what media do you think you're going to use? What size do you want to use? So this again is a 6x9. And I like this size because you can put it in a backpack. Of course, it's small enough that you don't feel overwhelmed trying to, carry or to fill the pages. I like one with a hard back. I prefer a spiral, but not everyone does. Some people like a bound book, which is nice. So you need some kind of paper and some kind of sketchbook. You need something to draw and write with. That could be pencil. Some people are basically pencil people. Some people like pen. I have pencil and pen. Most of my finished things tend to be with pen, not all of them. I don't normally use like a HB pencil because I will have to spray it so it doesn't smudge over time, but sometimes I do that. Do you want to add color? What will you use? Will you use watercolor paints? Will you use pencils, colored pencils, markers? And then of course you need something to put your materials into. There might be other things you add, sharpeners, erasers, things that go with some of your other things. So you need a brush. If you're painting, you'll need a brush. You'll need water. If you're using watercolor pencils, you will want a sharpener. You might want an eraser. You need some personal comfort items. Of course we do. We might want a hat or a slicker. We might want bug spray or, a netted cap, something. We want to always stay hydrated and be safe. Snacks, water. The nice thing about a water bottle can also provide water for painting. Do you like a seat or do you want to sit on the ground? If you're going to sit on the ground, you might want to have a garbage bag or something in case of wetness. Also, like picnic tables are sometimes really wet, from the night before or the dew. So you think about these things, where you want to sit. I stood on boardwalks before and sketched, but in time that gets tiring too. So sometimes that's kind of nice. You want a field guide. What about a compass? Where are you going? A phone, a camera, both. The nice thing about phones is you can take pictures, you can find your way with maps, you can get the longitude and latitude, you can research things if you have the internet. So let's just look at a really, really basic kit and how I use it. So here's that 6x9. So I would have taken on this trip a pencil. It has an eraser on the end, and that's really all I need. I use a waterproof artist pen. This one is in black. It's like an 01 size. Watercolor pencils, that's what I used here. Now look, I did not cover this with color. All I used was a little spot color here and there. And that's really all you need. Sometimes you don't have to do the whole page. Sometimes you do want to though. And so my goal is to figure out kind of what I was seeing and finding. And it was a cool day. Lots of cicadas in the background. Lots of yellow things and lavender things blooming. Those were the predominant colors in May for some reason, for where I was. Well, some pinks. I used the water brush to dissolve some of my color with the watercolor pencils. I also use toweling to control moisture, and that's paper toweling or actually terry rags are best for that because you could reuse them. They're like a sustainable art supply. So you just rinse them out and use them again. Ziploc bags because you want to, pack anything out that you brought in, any trash. And sometimes you put your supplies in there in case you drop them. If you don't want to drop something into the, swampy area, you might want to keep things dry sometimes. Drinking water is always a plus. I usually have 2 bottles with me. A hat to protect your head if you like, sunglasses, and of course more. So of course, here's my sketchbook. On this particular page, I sketched lightly with pencil, and then I added my pen, erased any stray lines, and just started throwing in some color here and there. The water brush is to activate my deeper color. It also will smooth pencil lines. And this is I think it's a 90 pound or 93 pound paper. So it's for mixed media. It will take light washes without too much buckling. But also you get a lot more pages to the sketchbook than if it were watercolor paper. I always try to write my notes in pen. And yes, sometimes I have mistakes and crossouts, and sometimes I get a little crowded because it's really about the day, not about how this is. I'm not planning to frame this, but notes for how I do this sometime down the road. You see, I never got to that one yet. That one I did. And some I already know, and some I learned. And of course, it was a really fine sunny day, yes, 90s. So we did not stay a really long time. Okay, so here's another kit kind of in action. Just to show you a different type. This has the watercolor paint, and sometimes the water container helps you clean your brushes more quickly. This is the stain paper that takes light washes as well. Of course, I have way too many supplies here. Really, I don't need 4 pens. And this water brush would have replaced these 2 things. But there's some paper towels and toweling. And I probably didn't need these 2 other little sketchbooks, but they were kind of fun to have. And of course, I just have a nice bag with lots of zippers. I tend to throw a lot of things in my bag, so I have to kind of take things out over and over. But you know, that's part of the fun of drawing, sketching, and just creating. So this is where we get to find out, and you start thinking about your goals. If you were going to start, what do you want to do with your nature journal? Do you want to just explore and see where it goes? Do you want to use it just to learn more about habitats, native plants? Maybe you want to learn about other things. Do you want to document as part of a project? You know, maybe you need to measure things and do counts and so forth. Do you want to express that mysterious connection to nature, that wonderful thing that we all are there for? You want to just relax. And what kind of stories do you want to tell? The stories you're going to tell are going to be about you and your experience in nature. You are unique. No one else can tell your story, by the way. And a lot of us probably are have had 1 or 2 careers. So just think too, your career, your interests in life are going to also, that's the lens you see through. Most of us, we can't help it sometimes. If I had been an architect for 30 years, I would probably see nature in a more structured architectural way. I'm thinking now of an architect, retired architect I knew who lived in Missouri, an online friend, but she did create the most beautiful pages. But you could tell, they often had borders. They were very structured, yet still had a certain wildness about them. So, and her stories were more about the interaction of humans imprinting themselves on nature and trying to, you know, redo them in structured gardens or here's how it should be type of thing, where some of us just want to go out and see what the wild is like and experience that. So everything is different. You are so very unique, and what you have to express and the stories you tell have value. So when you're starting, I want you to remember to keep it simple and be flexible. Our expectations are such that for some reason, when it comes to any type of art-related projects, art-related skills, we have this idea that either you're born an artist or you're not. And I say no, maybe. Some of us are more artistic in some ways in our viewpoints, but you know, really drawing and painting, those are just skills that anyone can learn. You can learn to be a wonderful technical artist. It may not have heart in it, but that's where your unique viewpoint and connection to nature is going to make all the difference. This is why I think we like field sketches so much better than polished, you know, polished illustrations or polished final pieces of art, because there's something in a field sketch that captures an immediacy. It captures a different story, and it tells about the person, the artist, and whatever is happening around that person, if that makes sense, I hope. Now, find resources that will help you. All artists need to have that support. It can be in person or online. You can journal with a friend. I highly recommend that, or a group. And it's important. Artists need to have feedback. This is important, whether you're a singer, an author, an artist. It is very helpful. This helps us grow. I want you to remember these two words, trusted source. You know who that person is. There are some people that we know not to ask opinions of because we already know what they'll say. And that's okay. They have a different job. But you do have trusted friends who will give you feedback that is valuable. Educate yourself. There's so much available to us online that, we can learn so much. There are so many groups out there who would love to have you in it and be a part of. There were so many groups that might say, we would love to see some of your drawings in our newsletter. Tell us about your experiences. Be that lifelong learner. Above all, I want you to be safe. That's why it's good to be with a friend, especially if you're in the wild. Know what you're drawing. Don't pick anything you don't know about. Don't eat anything you're not sure of. Wash your hands afterwards. All those things that we were told as kids. It's important to be safe so that we have fun and we get to do it again and again. Yeah. I have a couple resources for you if you ever want to just kind of learn more from other people, which is wonderful. Now, John Muir Laws. He has written many books. He has an online website. He has, oh my gosh, a YouTube channel. He has free things. His website is packed to overflowing with all kinds of things that, I don't even know how to say, but it can easily overwhelm you. I say go be simple, start small, work your way to find what interests you and find out about that. So if you're ready to jump in and start drawing, you might want to go here. If you just want to know more about how other people are journaling, the International Nature Journal, the week was the last June. This blog has a number of guest posts from all types of different nature journalers, from very beginners to people who've done it for years. And each one has a different topic. So it's a great place to see all types of different styles and purposes and read their words. Why do I do this? Here's my challenges. How did I get there? And then of course, if you like to watch videos, Marley is a friend of John Muir Laws. He's a younger person. He's quite comical sometimes, but he has a lot of value in what he says. How to nature journal in 10 steps. There you go. Spend 10 minutes at a time. Roseanne Hanson also, she does things. They have an annual conference, Wild Wanderer, and she's a part of that. I think she's at the University of Arizona, I think, but she does classes and free tutorials and just all kinds of interesting things like making pigments from the wild. So grinding up berries and rocks and clay. She's out west. So she's into all of really interesting things, but also just regular nature journaling. She has a lot of free things you can go to, as well as paid classes. So just a few tidbits of things. And of course, there's a couple of resources in the chat that I think Andy will put that will have more resources if you really, really want to get out there and start looking. Nature journaling seems to have had a revival of interest in the last couple of years. So there are a lot of people jumping into it. And now it's going to be time for your time to ask me questions or share something. And I see we have questions in the chat. Oh, good. Yes, Wild Wonder conferences. Yes.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for this absolutely beautiful presentation. We have had a lot of activity in the chat, so if you like, Karen can read those questions to you.
Okay,
you
that
can answer them.
would be wonderful.
Okay. It looks like the first one is the Beautyberry page done first and wash for background after, or wash first?
Okay, Beautyberry. I'm going through it step by step. Okay, I have to tell you, sometimes I do the background wash first. In that case, it was done after because I did not know that I wanted to do a wash for the background. I know that I'm not a good planner sometimes, but because, you know, I just want to start drawing. Yeah, I added that. That can be challenging though, because now you've got to, you know, a lot of times you can do a light blue over something or a light green, and you can just do it over everything. And then once you're painting on top of it or coloring in on top of it, it vanishes. But this one would have been done after.
All right, we have, there are some folks who are just putting in comments like the
Oh.
pages are beautiful and inspiring.
Thank you.
Another question we've got from Connie. I love your pale gray shadows. Do you try to visualize a light source before you lay down the gray?
Oh, yes, always. Because first of all, a lot of times the light source is going to help me create my form. And it's very important when you're doing a shadow to make sure your shadow looks logical and believable. So yes, I have to pay attention. I find my light source. And of course, your shadow is going to be opposite that. Shadows typically are darker next to the subject. And as they move away, they tend to get lighter and lighter. You know, you can see that in certain things. I try to set my lighting up so it's a nicer shadow, because there are some, if your lighting's really harsh, it will be, your shadow will be too dark and too unbelievable. And the edges won't vanish. I also try to make my shadows a little lighter than they are in actual real life, because for some reason, once they go on paper, they do look more believable. So just a little thing I've learned, if I make them exactly what they are, it does not seem to work.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of times we don't really want to match what we see exactly, because when we start doing that, we lose the interplay of light and the variety of different colors. You know, usually once we try to match exactly, we'll pick one little area and then maybe make it that leaf that green, and all of a sudden you have this flat green leaf. Well, it doesn't look like that in real life. It's got light on it. It's got, you know, maybe it's got a puffy, pulsy thing going on, like a wild coffee or a beautyberry, you know, or maybe it's just got a leathery sheen, you know. So the job is to try to capture the feeling rather than the exact, here's what I see. Yeah.
All right, we've got some more comments. Love the way that you honor both art and science in such a beautiful way.
Thank you.
Marlene states that she loves the old booklet called Planning and Planting a Native Plant Yard by John G.
Yeah, Burial. Yes, I
Mhm,
remember that.
I guess it has your drawing. So, and she's suggesting that maybe there's a desire or wish to do an update on that.
Oh, wow. And John Burial is still around, I think. But yes, that was done in the 80s, I think. It was just a little booklet, and it started off as a series of newsletter articles. Because, you know, if anyone had ever gone to John's garden or yard, it was pretty amazing. So, you know, he shared with how he started going about doing that, including how he put in a pond and how he did it, which was pretty cool. Yeah, that would be kind of nice.
Let's see, we've got more comments that it's a wonderful presentation. And then
Thank you.
the John Muir Laws is incredible, and that they
Yes.
have Wild Wonder conferences twice a year on Zoom from California, with lots of other artists teaching a huge variety of subjects.
Oh, yes. Actually, I think it's once a year, but it's like a whole week long. And then they've got like tons of workshops going on all the time throughout the year. So but oh my gosh. So I don't know if it's Connie or Lisa, did you go to that particular one? It was all online and it can be overwhelming. I signed up, but I couldn't go to everything because it's basically a 1 week, all day, immersive. I can't even tell you. That's what you spend. And you don't want to spend all day on Zoom anyway. Most people don't. But it is, they make everything available to you for months afterwards. In fact, you can buy just the access and then do things on your own at your own speed, which is a nice thing, you know. And I think some of our Nature Journal people from classes have done that, but you can learn a lot from that. And
Yeah,
just,
Elizabeth, this is Lisa.
Hi.
I did the conference twice, once in June and once in October.
Oh gosh, they did you too, huh? That's
Yeah,
great.
and they were both on Zoom, and it was such a wealth of information. And I was doing it, if you remember Ann Katza from
Oh, yeah.
Massachusetts. So we would like text each other during the classes, like, what do you think of him? And, you know, how's that going? And how's your bird? You know, and then we'd share our drawings at the end of the day with
Aw.
each other. Because she left Florida, she moved back to Massachusetts for good.
Yes. Yeah. I
But
really-
yeah, but it was really, if anybody is really interested in learning a whole host of things regarding nature journaling, I totally recommend this Wild Wonder Conference, and you can hear about it through John Muir Law's website.
Oh, yes. And they're planning it right now for I think this one's October coming up. I think they're going to do it in October again. So it's going to be another, yeah. And they've got great people. I mean, really top-notch teachers. You know, some are, and all different types. I mean, we've got scientists and they're doing, you know, journaling with microscopes and journaling with, you know, just really interesting things. And I don't know, it's just, you can't describe it, but I think you did a good job. Yeah, I'm still going back to all the things I learned there. And some of the mapping was not from that specifically, but from topics, workshops that grew out around that in different times. So, I mean, they did mapping. These are just things that popped up on the website. One was journaling about fire, which is fascinating. A lot of this comes with they're seeing things through the lens of the other coast, but you know, it's still applicable here. We just switch it up to what's going on here, and fire is a big thing here too. So, you know, how would you draw fire? How do you you learn about the colors of fire and the different colors of smoke and what they mean, and how would fire sound if you were to write it down. And it's pretty, you know, really interesting ways to look at interpreting science through art and words. So a lot of them are scientists and teachers. Just really, yeah, like you said. It's great. Yeah, just be prepared, be a sponge. Thanks, that was great to have that comment.
And there's also the suggestion of arttoolkit.com.
Okay, yes.
Free information, free classes and information.
Yes, yes. I think that was from Lisa too. Yeah, so she gets on there, and yeah, a lot of places have so much free information, even though they have classes and things you can buy. They are very, I have to say, artists are very open to sharing. All the artists I've ever run into, and nature journalers especially, they want to see everyone, you know, out there honoring nature and spreading the word, which is great. And that's what today's all about, is to help us see it, experience it differently. One of the people in one of the classes, she gets on Zoom with her granddaughter in Germany, and they do once a week journaling together of different nature things. And it's a way for them to stay in touch, but she keeps up her art skills that way. There's just so many things you can do with it. You don't have to be outside. You can bring things inside. You can take it in the field. Nature's always around us. It really is. So anyway, I can keep going. Sorry about that. So any more questions?
Just one.
Oh,
So
okay.
in terms of the water brush, does the water brush pick up color? So do you need to rinse it?
Oh, well, yes, you do need to rinse it, because like any brush, it's going to have, color on the bristles. So I usually will wipe it with the toweling. But if you give it a water brush is, just for those who don't know, it is, it's like a plastic column. It carries water in the center or the barrel. And what you can do is typically you squeeze the, the handle, and the water will come out and moisten the bristles. So, or deluge them, depending on what you're doing. So you never, just so you know, you never squeeze the barrel while you're painting. What you do is just moisten it, not over your drawing. But once, let's say I've painted something and now it's full of green paint, I will usually hold it over my toweling, give it a good squeeze, let the water from the barrel rinse it out. And I do that in the field. It's quicker if you have a small water container, you can just swish it around and rinse it. So, but you do need to, if you're just using a tiny bit of color, you may not have that much. So yes, I definitely always rinse between colors, especially. But it's a great tool, and there are many, many different brands out there now. I have an EG water brush in a large size that is probably about 15 years old. It's still doing well. And I say this because I think it's, it's one of the better type, better made brands, in my opinion. But there are all types out there, and they're reasonable. I think they're very reasonable. They're not expensive, and they're kind of fun. They're almost like magic. Yeah, they're a great tool, very portable. I've used those on airplanes in the past when I wanted to do some little sketches and things. You don't have to have much, a watercolor pencil and your little sketchbook and your water brush and a little piece of towel, and you can do all kind, keep yourself occupied, and there's no mess, So many cool art supplies out there, so little time. Does anybody here keep a journal? Or is anyone nature journaling at all? Even just, documenting with the camera, I understand that with the iNaturalist. That's a great tool. I'm just wondering if anyone is doing this currently.
Well, I go back and forth between, just a botanical drawing of one specific plant. And once in a while, I will take a small book and try and actually draw and paint in the field. But not as much as I should, or I should say that. I always get inspired when I go to the Wild Wonder Conference, and then I'm doing that like for months. But then I just move indoors and just concentrate on like one huge sea grape leaf or something.
Well, that's okay. I do that too.
Right.
It's kind of like, because our lives are different and our lives change, and every day it's, new challenges come. And, it's just the way things are. It's life. We do what we can, and sometimes, excuse me, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of times our art time is the first thing to go. We decide that, well, we'll do that later, because right now I have to do these other things, more important. I've got to clean the house. I've got to do laundry. I've got to whatever, fill in the blanks, go to work. But it really just takes, really you can spend 15 minutes. And right there, you probably lower your blood pressure, connect a little bit with nature, and maybe get inspired, change your viewpoint. But sometimes that's one of the wonderful parts about nature. I have to say, nature journaling is one of the comments would get with feedback is that people didn't realize how Zen-like or relaxing it could be, and how much they really enjoyed that. Just to sit with nature for a while made a big difference to them, even for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So I hope, if nothing else, it might inspire you to consider, even if you go out and sit and write some words, write a poem, write down what you see, and then maybe you'll feel inspired to put a little sketch in there, or take a drawing class, or go visit some tutorials, and you'll say, oh, this is doable. I can do that. And hopefully one of the resources available to you is I worked on a companion sort of a workbook for just getting a little bit deeper into things people would ask about in the classes. So there's a booklet I started working on. It's just kind of still a work in progress. Hopefully that can be made available to you too, because you attended here, and because I hope that you might be inspired to try more if you're not drawing. And don't even think that you can't draw, because I still think everyone can. And I think Lisa and Marjorie and Marlene and Janet will probably support me on that. Yes, you can draw and paint and do art, right? And Linda. So yeah, I hope to see some of your pictures in the newsletter sometime, or online on Facebook, or maybe you'll send me one and say, yeah, I'm doing this. What do you think? That would be wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for everything. I do want to confirm that we have shared in the chat the 3 resource files that you shared with the group tonight. If anybody wasn't able to access it through the chat, just let us know, naplesnativeplants@fnps.org, and we'll be able to pass those resources on to you. And it's been really wonderful tonight, this sense of community, bringing people together who might not have seen each other for a little while, and they experienced your art classes together. And I've been thinking back to the one nature journaling session that I got to participate in with you at the Naples Preserve all those years ago. And then it's funny to fast forward, and now I work at the Naples Preserve. And all of the things I could have chosen as my subject on that nature journaling day, all the different plants I'm familiar with now, I picked one saw palmetto frond that had broken off from the plant and was just laying on the sand somewhere. So it's just, you can find this, the nature journaling page later and kind of, place it in the sequence of how your life has gone.
Yeah, I know. It's a wonderful thing too, isn't it? Yeah,
It sure is.
very nice. Yeah, it's been my pleasure to be here tonight and to share a little bit about what has made my life richer, and to hope that it might make your life richer as well. And of course, nature is so important to us. We need the voices out there. We need people who don't see green things as just another thing in the way of another building or parking lot. And so there's also benefits there, because once we understand the deeper value of having these living things around us, It makes such a difference in our lives, doesn't it? It really
Certainly
does. Mhm. And I appreciate all the wonderful comments people have made. I can't really see them right now, but I can probably take a peek at them. Oh, I can. Okay. Yes, I can now.
Yeah, and the chat, you've received a lot of compliments and accolades.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. And I see there's a couple of courses in there people are bringing out. Yes.
Mhm.
There are so many free things out there too that you don't have to pay for. And the nice thing about that is you can, you know, some of them are self-paced. So you don't have, to be anywhere at a particular time. And you do have to have discipline, but, oh yes, Janet. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for your lovely, lovely, wonderful comments. I just appreciate, I appreciate the friendships and the camaraderie that Nature Journaling has brought us together.
So
And any more
happy.
questions? Yeah, I put my email and a couple of the blog and a new website I'm working on
Ah,
that has other resources, I hope. So
thank you so much for sharing your contact information with us. So as you said, if anybody has future questions for Elizabeth, you're able to reach out to her. And we've come to the end of our time for our meeting tonight, but I really appreciate everybody who chose to attend our meeting live this evening. And remember, you can watch the recording on our YouTube channel as soon as we've got it edited and available. And I hope to see all of you at our next meeting on Wednesday, March 2nd.